Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025, and you are in the Java Cafe. Thank all of you for being here. As expected, we have a whole lot of extra new folks in the room today, and so our mayor is going to be on her way in a couple of seconds. Let's go in the Java Cafe first over on Facebook and see who, oh boy, see who was in this morning. Milagro, good morning to you. Good to see you in the room. Mama Java, good morning to you. Naraki, good morning, beautiful. Good to see you in the room. Also, Opal Thompson, good to see you in the room this morning. Sister Debbie, good morning to you. Tashad, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Over on Instagram, Benita Bly, good morning. Edwin, what's up, Mr. Shoemaker? Good to see you in the room. Pecan 617, what's up, Janky? Lennox Chaser and so Lord Jesus, y'all in these names on social media. Squeaky, good to see you in the room. I see Estella's is in here. Also CMS. Shut up, Squeaky. Don't make it a messy Wednesday. It's good to see everybody in the room. As soon as our mayor comes in, we will. Ricardo, good to see you in the room, brother. Over on Facebook, Sharon Cornelius. Good morning. Good to see you. Just watch. Over on Instagram as well. Our folks on Twitter. Well, let me say today, Twitter might be a little more active because the subject, of things, and there's some expectations. Of course, we're going to talk about the mayoral race. It kind of officially sort of started yesterday. And so we're definitely going to check in with candidate Wu about that. This is our mayor she's incumbent, but she's now a candidate. And so in that vein, there is, and speaking of, the mayor got a new dude. I'm sorry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I present to some and introduce to others. Somebody got a new do. How you doing? Get you unmuted. I think it's not on my end. I got you in there. See if you can. Let me see. Is it the headphones? There you. I heard.
Test.
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm good. I somehow have a filter on, so I look like
You
I'm
got,
still in my 30s now.
Okay, so you coming in, Mayor? How are you doing? We
good.
start off with that. I want to take advantage of the time. You understand the time that we're in. I was just saying, this year you have morphed in, to a candidate, incumbent and candidate. But as I always do, and when we talked in December, I said, what's in it for 25? And what did you say? Ready for it. And so, but we're going to cover a lot of things. And I even have notes here just to keep us focused. I have not been a little anxious in an interview with you in a long time. So this is very interesting because you understand the balance of our relationship, but then also now you being a candidate, the private accountability is a little more public. So anyway, with that being said, Mayor, let me ask you, how are you doing? Still new mom with this child, your daughter, and, so much that's going on. And we are going to talk a little bit about the national politics and the impact, of what's going there. But how are you doing? And then we're going to get into the business of things. How are you? And how is Myra?
I'm energized and excited. My family and I are just so happy to be at this point. I think, I've shared that it was a really long journey for us to get to this beautiful little one. And she's just the biggest blessing. And every day when I look at her, I think a little bit about like all the ups and downs that led us to this point. And there's nothing like it in the whole world. I also just, because the last time I did this was a little bit ago, 7 years ago and 10 years ago with the boys, it's a good reminder also of, some things are familiar and come back. And then there are things about the outside world and our city that it reminds me we've made a difference on a bunch of things. And of course, there's still so much work to go. And we are fighting every day, especially now, against a lot of headwinds to try to do what we need for the city to be what we know it can be. But last go round and 2 go rounds ago, there was a totally different childcare landscape in the city because now we have created hundreds of new early ed seats. And I was just visiting Roxbury Roots yesterday, one of the city's first Montessori programs right in Roxbury. It's a different situation with our free museum program. So, there's just places where it reminds me, okay, I feel like now, for example, there's paid leave for nearly every city employee versus just a very small group before. And, the arc bends, even if it can feel like we're still kind of zigzagging a little in the meantime.
I definitely understand that. And that is a perspective that a mayor, first time in history, I'll say in this case, history. We're going to talk a little bit about Black history too. That, we have a mayor that can kind of speak to that experience in childcare. Mayor, you cited, you went right into the business and cited some of the achievements of your administration. While there are achievements, and in the vein also of the announcement yesterday, we're going to talk about that. But one of the questions I had, and incumbents, in my opinion, should always be, that 4-year or 2-year period is a report card. It's a
Yeah.
time for the voters and the residents to reevaluate or evaluate, and in a newcomer's case, consider a candidate. And so, with the accomplishments, there are challenges. We've spoke about mine in the space that we spoke about almost since we've known each other in violence prevention. But there are things like the recent report that came out about the number of Black men that are dying. There are, I call it white poles and speed bumps. There's mass incasts. There's, though our numbers are low in violence, I believe that we are unfortunately at 4 homicides, I believe, this year, if I have that number correct. And so, yes, we'll talk about the announcement yesterday, absolutely. But one of the questions that I thought about was, there is a viability to the candidate that announced yesterday. And you get the political, we're pundits in politics, with such viability and levels of support. No community is a monolith. How do you speak to some of the challenges that were named, some of the things that were named in the video, the press release? How do you speak to, and I said yesterday, rather than room for improvement, we all know that there may be a canyon for improvement in some spaces. Mayor, how do you speak to the need for improvement? And then we can talk about the candidacy, piece in the announcement or whatever yesterday. But there are valid concerns from voters, from, again, white poles and speed bumps to mass incasts. There are, I'll specifically say Black developers and entrepreneurs, and some have been impacted by space grants and other things, but the inbox, the comments, and some of them have been consistent through, I'll say, the last half of your first term. So, Mayor, I know that was a lot and long, but these are some valid concerns and things that have come to my attention, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the challenges and how you plan to address them.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for a long time because both of us have been kind of in the trenches in the city for a little bit. And starting from kind of crossing paths on the 5th floor in the mayor's office when you were back there, to my time on the city council. And it's kind of hard for me to realize sometimes, but because it's felt like I just got going in this yesterday almost,
Mhm.
right? I can still remember when I was sitting there and you walked by and like it feels very recent, but I've been at this on the elected side for 12 years now. And in that time, you get to see, there oftentimes we are having the same kinds of conversations in the same spaces.
Yep.
And what I know also from being in the trenches and being at neighborhood meetings and being involved on these issues for a little bit is that it's actually easy to say the right words in these conversations. If your goal is just to get out of that conversation until the next go round, like everyone knows in some ways what the challenges are. There's actually a fairly shared understanding of what we need to address and how long standing many of these challenges have been. Now, where it gets tricky is how to then provide the solutions that move things forward in a way that feels responsive and grounded in community, urgent enough to make the difference and solve what we're facing right now, but also giving the space so that people are embedded in driving that decision forward. It's a really complex and beautiful thing that's called democracy, and there's nothing like it. I mean, it's different from the private sector. It's different from philanthropy. It is about all the various needs that people have and different perspectives, and whether or not at the end of that conversation you're going to choose to put it back on the shelf until it gets taken down again at the next meeting, or you're going to try to make the tough call and do something about it. I think in many places we have, I've gotten in this job not to have a title, not to, spend time away from my family who I love very much, not to, be in the spotlight all the time, but to do something and to try to contribute my part, however small that can be, in building a team that reflects the city and that can mobilize progress forward. Because if there's anywhere in the country that there's hope for us to still show that government works and that people can get things done, like this is the place where it started, and this is the place where we have to take on that responsibility. We can go
Mayor,
issue by issue. I think we do that from week or month to month. But I will say the last thing I'll say on these is this set of things, and then let's get into specific issues. Is it's also really important to tell people the truth, right? I think more than anything right now, even I was going to say, even when it is such a terrifying environment out there, even when so much of what was fought for and secured over generations is now being threatened and unraveled and just kind of ripped up. Again, it can feel like what we want to hear is comfort, like, oh, I'm just going to create more housing and all of a sudden prices will be down, or this is the way that we can suddenly move rent control without, just at the city level. It's important to, now more than ever, people need to hear the truth about what is possible, how to do it, and what these policies actually mean, right? A good landlord tax break is not the same as rent control. Being able to say, I don't believe in this, or I want to stop this, or I want to not move that,
Ma-
that's not the
Mayor,
truth of how we move the city forward.
Mayor, if I can chime in, and on the piece of there you did back to me what I did to you and packed the answer with so much. Some of the central themes I heard there was an ability of the power of the pen. We see it going on. We are going to talk about some of the impact of the national politics toward the end. We have about good 15, 20 minutes, depending on until I get that text. With some of the things that you said about putting things on the shelf and valid issues and being grounded in community, we got to give balance that things can be said on a campaign and you never, things change for you. Positions change from city councilor to mayor because you have a different lens. But through that lens, there have been some things that you've been radical about. It's an election year. Let's just keep it 100. Any and everything that any city councilor or you do is going to be perceived as political. We get it. I also believe in getting all that we can get in an election year from an incumbent. What is one, because of our time, is there an area that you wish you could have either done over by the power of the pen, or an area where there was one opinion in community, for whatever reason, the stance changed? And an example would be speed bumps and white poles. That, Mayor, is a resounding from all platforms, convos, a resounding thing for almost 2 years. So you can pick the example, but if there's one thing that you can do over, as now having this peer review, but it didn't match with what the community wanted, what is that one thing?
Okay. I have 3 things that popped into my head, and they're slightly different
Mayor,
examples.
we're gonna
I'm gonna go
give you
short
1.5.
on. I'm
Okay,
gonna go
okay.
short.
If you go short on all 3, with
So, and they're different examples of different sort of parts of the job. I will say on schools, this
okay,
is where my heart is. This is where I send my kids every single day, well, Monday through Friday, to the Boston Public Schools.
Mhm.
And do I wish that now, 4 years in, we could have fixed every issue and made it so that, every part of what we're worrying about for our families was fixed? Absolutely. This is, I think, in some ways, the most important investment that we can make. but there was just so much turmoil with the pandemic, public education under attack nationally, 5 superintendents in 7 years. It's taken time to get things. I mean, we are making tremendous progress under Superintendent Skipper and all the educators and school leaders. But
10 seconds on
it's
school
going to
meeting.
take more
10
time.
seconds.
So
Yep.
this is in progress. I
Okay.
think on streets with the bike lanes, bus lanes, what everyone sees and feels in the streets. I will just say, one, every place where something happened came from someone raising their hand in community and saying, I don't feel safe here. Now, how many people that represents out of the users of the roadway, like, there's a real question for government. Do you listen to the people who live right there and don't feel safe when cars are zooming, and therefore you slow it down? Or do you listen to the cars that need to zoom by and let them keep going fast? There's trade-offs there. And what I'll say on this area is that we are not the goal is not to one and done, move on to the next, move on to the next.
Yep.
Each change and each street is an area that needs to be constantly reevaluated and then amended or updated or
removed.
if
Can we talk there for
so.
1 second around some of the chatter that I saw was, and I got a little bit of clarity, but it brings up another issue, particularly to white poles, white poles and speed bumps, particularly in Jamaica Plain. There was either a meeting or something, and there was advocacy to where I believe the speed bumps were or are being removed. Some of the chatter I heard was that in other areas, in I'll just say specifically Black areas, when there was pushback about installations, they haven't been, not that I'm aware of, they haven't been removed. And one of the things that was named, you said that there was that, embedding of community and things change and updates. But one of the things that was named was there had seemed to be an imbalance from those being removed in JP. And then, now this is James and just personal, some of the polls in the American Legion Highway, Jesus. So can you talk a little bit to how that happened, where people can perceive inequity in their voice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both ways, again, were started and evaluated with community feedback. And so the push up, so for example, in one of the most recent streets that there was some removals, the project was started because there was a petition or a request for a certain part of a certain housing development to have cars go slower. And then there was an installation, and then there was a lot of feedback afterwards that the city's goal of having cars drive at around 25 miles an hour for the speed limit for most residential non-highway streets, that wasn't happening, and that it was way slower than that. And there were some issues. The speed humps were installed and they ended up being way too high, something about they were put in when it was cold and therefore it didn't compact down as much as usual, so they needed to be taken out, this and that, the other. But again, it was both directions, people reaching out saying, this isn't working, and can we come to the best model for safety that takes into account everyone's needs. Everyone has very different uses of the street. Everyone has very different experiences with whether you're trying to cross the road as your primary, experience with it, or you're trying to just get your kid home from school and you want to just go as fast as possible. And those, sometimes it's not possible to make everyone the happiest that they could be with that experience. I would say our neighborhood liaisons and our, we lean on city councilors, that feedback, sometimes I think in certain parts, people say, well, they did it and that's horrible. And then they assume that the city's not listening anymore, or that there's nothing to be done about it because it was installed. Please reach out and please let us know. And I think I've been thinking recently about how better to get that feedback, even on projects that happened that were not planned under our administration, like American Legion Highway, which was installed under the last administration, or others that still continue to have a lot of impact on people's daily lives.
Let's just give some balance there. And I'm going to ask a question to close out sort of this piece, because I want to give you the opportunity for a third, and then we got to move on to a couple of other things. And so yes or no, can you understand the original issue I named in this around the valid perception or feeling of inequity of that JP versus another community, RDM JP? I'm not exactly sure where. Well, generally, some of the chatter is that, a lot of them needed to be removed. Yes or no? Can you appreciate the appearance and feeling of inequity in their voice and decision around either removal or, no more bike lanes in a particular area?
I think that's always present. Yes.
Okay,
And
yes, ma'am.
in the systems that we set, even 311, right? There are like who has access to apps, who has the time to be sitting there reporting things over and over again. And we do rely on that now a lot to inform how we're collecting data and this and that. So the city, our liaisons really have been working to make sure that they're scrubbing Facebook groups and
Yep.
proactively in community to anticipate and see with their own eyes where the changes need to be, not just sort of waiting for people to reach
Gotcha.
out as well.
Third issue that you would admit, Mayor, I need you to make this one short because we got a couple more to go. Third issue that you wish you could, and you said you were going to keep them short, so we're doing 3. Third issue that you wish you could have, and this one, if you could speak particularly to the lens of what was in your power, and maybe it wasn't if you went back, you could have, I'll say a mistake or a wrong decision. Is there one of those?
On the tax issue.
Okay. Yep.
We fought for a year, and then like 9 months in, came to an agreement. So this is at this point, we had a proposal that would have reduced residential taxes, kept people's taxes at a reasonable level, and not hurt the businesses. And we testified all over the place. City Council passed it. The House of Representatives passed it. The Senate said, we just need the business community to sign on. We came to a deal with everyone. And then they said, now just codify the changes. So it's in the language and send it back through one more time. And then we're good. So we did it again. Council passed it again, amended. House passed it again, amended. And then I believed them. That was my mistake. I believed them that when they said, if you do this, this will move forward, that would happen. And we should have just kept up the pressure. We should have had, we didn't end up doing town halls in every single neighborhood because we came to a deal. And I thought there was a sense of trust there that this was the process and this is how you follow. And it turns out that that wasn't the case. And we should have not believed anything and just kept fighting. We're still fighting now. We've refiled it with the ability to still address this issue this tax year, and or give rebates out to residents. And so this is back before the city council again, because we had to start over with the new session. They had a hearing. Hopefully they'll vote on it, and then we'll move back up to the State House.
Mayor, I will just be real, and I know we're public, but if we was on the phone, I would say, Mayor, that's a little bit of, because I was looking for more 100% something that, you own that maybe could have been done different, but you said, you trust in them. That's a little 50-50 there, but I am aware of that whole process. There's a whole thought, we had one of the opponents, on. So Mayor, we're going to move on. Where did I put my notes? The other thing is access. One of the other areas of concern, that comes my way is access, and I'm just going to be 100. It's a lot around development, particularly Black development. One particular issue that you and I have been back and forth about particular area of land. Can you appreciate that some feel that they don't have, and to be fair, BPDA changed now to planning. And within that context, there was chatter leading up to when, and even as recently as this week, one of the comments I got was about Arthur Jameson in that place. And there is a lot of buzz around for Black developers. Let me frame it like this. What will be your intentionality because perception sometimes is reality for a lot of people. What will be your way? And you know, we know how you don't, it's just, you know, there's a different movement with developers in this administration. We get it. But particularly with Black, because they've been locked out and so marginalized, and because of the way that I just referred, they were locked out. You're a woman of color, Black and women developers. What is it that you will do so there may not be, and business owners maybe out of development that may not feel that level of access, even with the space grants, even with what all Chief Idowu did? There's a population that does not feel that if they're not a business. So there's a lot I'm trying to pack into the last couple of minutes, Mayor. And so with what you heard, can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is, I mean, there's a there's a reason why the team we have in place is where they are. And I remember, you know, now Chief Idowu and I were both fighting on the outside, right? We were like not fighting each other, fighting together against some of the things that were happening in City Hall at that time. Me from the City Council perch, where we had to pass legislation to get the city to actually track supplier diversity, and then Shogun at BECMA even suing the city and making sure that there was some accountability there. So from those days when we were at 0.65% of contracts going to businesses owned by Black and brown entrepreneurs or local Boston residents, to now where we have each year doubled and exponentially, you know, I think the latest numbers, we were at 12%. We've had the biggest jump, and now for the first time, more than $100 million in annual spend going to MWBE, you know, minority women business enterprises, the technical term. And that includes on the development side and on the city contracting side. We have, for the first time ever, created programs where developers would create housing with support and pre-development costs from the city. And that has been a program that's been entirely focused. Our Welcome Home Boston program, where we gave city land for developers to develop into housing, affordable housing, 100% of the teams that were selected were MWBEs in that group and have been working with the city, to many of them first-time developers and almost all locally based.
If I can chime in, Mayor, and because I know we're getting down to time, with, and as I said in the other question, you can, you know, some of the, I've always said Shogun's stuff is irrefutable. It's data, it's numbers, it's money. But there's still part of a population with everything that you named that feels that they don't have access. And I've seen the efforts. I know Shogun, and Lisa, you know who I'm talking about. Oh Jesus,
Alicia Porcena.
Yes, thank you. But there's still a population. Yes, there's still a population. So maybe we can, you know, because up through, you know, the rest of the year, these conversations going on, and we didn't get a chance to cover a lot of, well, you did. You covered a lot of policy. We didn't get a chance to get particular updates, but Mayor, I want to give you the opportunity, though, you know, you have not announced as of yet. Two last things is, one, national politics. I, you know, had shared that our city has been through crisis before with men as at the helm and shepherding us through. How do you view a lot of the national sentiment of politics? And, you know, let's keep it 100. There's a target on your back, sanctuary city. You've been summoned to DC. In the part of being a woman and a leader, how are you handling that?
We got the letter to go to DC last week, and it basically said you have to show up in, I think it was 2 weeks from the letter. At that point, the baby was 15 days old or something like that. And the first, you know, we've been in a conversation with the committee about how to navigate this, and the first response was, not where we ended up, and there really had to be some additional follow-up to emphasize that no, just giving me a pass on this, or letting someone else go on my behalf was not an adequate response to someone who is in this role and has a lot to share about the ways that our city is really an example for how to have a focus on safety and a focus on being welcoming for everyone and representing the fullness of our community's experiences. So I will be going in person. We are settling on a final date that
Okay.
will give more time and make that possible, hopefully for all the cities to participate as well. And Boston is going to be there to defend who we are as a community and the results that we've been able to achieve when this community is coming together, with the values that we hold and with the expertise that we have in community, in city government, in public safety, in the advocacy community. We have a real story to tell there, and I'm going to stand up for our city, no matter what it takes. This may be the first time that a baby was subpoenaed to go testify before Congress, but we are going to make it happen because, I just, Boston has given my family everything. This
Mhm.
is a city that saved my mom's life in mental health challenges, that helped me raise my sisters, that's helping me raise my kids. And when you're out and about in the spaces that people live in our city, when you're at our schools, when you're at our restaurants or small businesses or in the library or going to a community center program, you get to have thousands and thousands of conversations with people every day. And so that listening part of the job is actually my favorite part of feeling so inspired by all that's happening, that people are just rolling up their sleeves to get done and take care of their neighbors and take care of this amazing home that they are going to do whatever it takes to protect and to progress. Um, so I intend to bring a lot of those stories with me to DC,
Mhm.
and to make sure that we are very clear about who we are. And yes, that means buckling down for a lot of work that's still ahead of us, but also sharing about how much we have done and how much progress we have made. I'm really proud over the last 12 years of every bit that we have fought for, and especially in the last 3 years, all of our city workers, from schools to potholes to police and fire and EMS to public health, we have, I mean, there's just been so many examples of things that we're doing that have never been done before because we've really tried to address and tackle the challenges that we were told, it's always going to be that way. It doesn't always have to be that way. And that makes for tough conversations, but we're going to keep it going.
I appreciate that, Mayor, and a good way to close out. We're going to continue to have, and they'll be a little bit tougher this year as you are candidate, mayor, candidate, incumbent.
Can I say one thing on that though? I
Yes.
really wish that people would not just, like, I guess, let everyone off the hook for the other years in some way. Like, the way that I see it, yes, right. This is election year. I'm running. I'm gonna have the conversation. And there's something magical and special about people taking the time to tune into city government when there's so many other things going on in their lives. But if you're doing this right as an elected official, the way that you govern should also be consistent and the same throughout. And the way that you are in community should be the same throughout. So I'm just saying, I don't know if you have to be harder this year. You should be the same hard because it's all the same.
Okay. It's just from text to maybe in the convo, but to that point, there are different evaluations of, I believe, to what you're referring, that your 4-year consideration is consideration of the 4 years and not just what is said. Or let's be honest, some things might ramp up. Let's just keep it 100. They might. Yeah. It's an election year. Let's get it. I mean, let's keep it real. Yeah. But okay, Mayor,
that kind of report card should really be an ongoing thing, right? And I try really hard every time to say, here's how many, new homeowners we've been able to support. Here's how many, like, so people have real proof that we're not just talking the talk. There's real work happening, and it's happening from all across our departments and community. And I'm excited to share that even more this year.
Absolutely. And in that report card, Mayor, while you point to the things that would make it an A and B, there are some people in their experience. And you remember the Boston Magazine article last year? They said what my grade was. And then the woman said, well, what do you think the community would give the mayor? And I think I said, I had said C- or something. But so there is that balance of those that have access. And that there was a point in here about those that may not be aware of everything. But then there's also some that, as I started out by saying, that have valid concerns about a space, not room, but, in some spaces, canyon of improvement. So there's good, bad, and ugly, in this work. And so we away from the local, I believe there is agreement, and despite all, and we've to some extent, the whole Boston thing or whatever. But I just think when it comes to Boston, some of the chatter I saw online was like, yeah, I don't agree with everything that Mayor Wu, I don't rock with her hard and whatnot. But when it comes to the national trying to come in and that's a little bit different. So I would hope that there is a belief that at least around that, as our present mayor, that there is support, because that is a lot to handle in this present climate. So I'm going to get off or let you go, because I see the final last minute. She got to go. Mayor, thank you. And we'll talk soon. And I'll see you sometime next week. I didn't give you a chance, Black History Month, and all that we talked about. I just 5 seconds of it deserves so much more than a month. It's 24/7, 365. But I wanted to give you the opportunity. And I played the video the other day of when you played There Is No Way with us. Black History Month, ma'am. Please speak to is there commitment here to still honor Black history despite some of the
we are not letting some of the nonsense change who we are or take away the work that we're doing or the celebrations that to recognize the history that we have here and the history that's being made here. So we had a really nice flag raising ceremony to kick it off earlier in the week. Lots of events throughout the rest of the month and beyond. I think it's the 28th. I'm probably going to get this date wrong. I believe it's the 28th. That is our city-sponsored large Black History Month celebration. But there are veterans events. There are arts events. It's all of the above, and look forward to being out in community to enjoy it.
All right, Mayor, thank you so much. And we'll see you if you're around next week for the Ben Black History event.
All right. Thanks so much. See you later.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm going to say something to my audience. I have said before that fully to those whose motive is community, not self-grandizement, self-promotion, when there are exchanges and critiques, I understand I don't live necessarily up to everyone's expectation as a public figure, as a community-driven space. However, please never, ever get it twisted that I'll just say this. It is important that we focus on our health and not let things distract us when our responsibility is getting better. And who that message needs to be conveyed to, I hope you're hearing it. And I'll just leave that there. So, otherwise, thank all of you for tuning in today. I got to acknowledge he's a candidate. So, candidate Domingo De Rosa is in the building. I see him on here fussing And let me please, and I'm not saying this particularly to Domingo, but I just think I need to, because some or may not know who Gina Hills Harris is in this space. That's my mother. She may comment sometimes on negative comments. I'm her baby. I don't care how old I am. She may try. I've seen a comment. Can y'all work together? And da. Please, never, ever let me see my mother. Really, anyone, but please, never, ever let me see my mother disrespected. I'm not that dude. But so we're going to take a break and we'll be back in just a couple of seconds. I'm getting a phone call. I'll call you right back. So thank all of you for tuning in today. Just a couple of programming notes. Today's Wednesday. Oh, tomorrow. Good segue to close out. Life is good. Despite all y'all, life is good. We still got struggles and, everything, but life is definitely good. And it's sort of an intentional segment that we're going to be doing throughout the week, here and there, a couple of times a month, with intentionality on just highlighting the good, of community. And so it is an honor and a pleasure. Now, I know I'm probably going to get clapped a little bit because this episode has been, and if he's over on IG, this episode has been a couple of years in the making. And so I told him today, don't hurt me too bad. But Rob Eugene, I Am Boston on IG, the owner of Hugh Know the Vibe. He's coming in tomorrow to kick off our Life is Good segment, and it is his birthday. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we're going to close out the week with Brother Rob. And that is, oh Lord, my phone is going. He's coming in to chat with us about a perspective. He's a brand, he's a boss, but he's a father, he's a husband, he's a low-key community leader. He's featured in the Boston Equity Funds, Boston Education Funds Equity campaign, along with myself and Pam. I wish I had I need the MP4. Pam, send me the MP4 so I could play it tomorrow, so I can play Rob's portion. All right. All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Life is good. Somebody turn to your neighbor and virtually in the comments on Instagram, y'all still don't comment on Twitter, but on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and say, life is good. All right. Put in the comments, life is good. UC members, you all get an hour's worth of credit. Yes. Okay. Sharon Cornelius's birthday is tomorrow. We will, along with Rob, y'all remind me to make sure I cover that. I'm not going to get into the comments. Shout out to Helena Daniel over on Instagram, Miss Kit Kat, Miss Mark Diva. Oh, wait a minute. Is that Sean? I can't see anyway. Shout out to everybody. New. Y'all get new. And thank you, the mommy. I like that. D mommy. Is that your government? D Mommy Roman, thank you so much. Life is good. Thank you all. Michelle D. Smith, life is good. Pastor Marion, life is good. Aaron, safe travels. I'm not exactly sure when Mother's exact birthday is, but tell Mother, or you let me know the day, text me, and we'll give her a birthday shout out. Thank all of you for tuning in. And remember to stay positive. Do your best to not engage with negativity. Stand your ground, but even in that, respectfully. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Brother Rob. You all have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.